What are the top 9 tips on finding housing in Northern Virginia? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, and here's the rundown. Hey everyone, I'm Darren Robertson, realtor in Northern Virginia with Robertson Residential Group and Samson Properties. If this is your first time here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We do videos every week and you don't want to miss anything. So, what are the top 9 tips on finding housing in Northern Virginia? Tip number 1, it's important to understand the main types of properties in Northern Virginia. So the 3 main types are condos, townhomes, and single-family detached homes. The prices of each of these types of properties vary a lot based on location. There are several different types of condos. There are garden-style condos that have 1 to 4 floors usually. You'll find a lot of walk-ups with garden-style condo communities. You'll also find what are called mid-rise condos, which are usually considered 5 to 8 floors. These have some elements of like a high-rise condo in the sense that you'll often find a concierge, maybe a front desk person, some other amenities like a gym. You'll also find high-rise condo communities out there. These are many floors in a lot of cases. These are typically the most amenity-heavy condo communities. They have concierge, usually they have security, lots of different amenities inside like gyms and party rooms and things, and pools, swimming pools. There are also townhome-style condos, which are, they feel like townhomes, but they're condo ownership. There's a lot of townhomes in Northern Virginia as well. And on average, you will get more home for the money with a townhome compared to a single-family detached home. In terms of styles, you'll find anything from 1-level ramblers with basements to multiple-level colonial homes. You'll find split levels, split foyers. You'll find Cape Cods. Tip number 2, the closer you are to DC, the higher the prices, on average. So it's not just a cut and dry rule. You will find a lot of variation with prices all over Northern Virginia. And honestly, this is the number 1 challenge for most home buyers who move to this area. It's all about figuring out the balance between how close they need to be to DC for a commute, for instance, versus how much home they want to buy. Some people, they know that, okay, I just don't want to be farther than X amount of minutes away from home when I get out of work in the evening. And as a result, in figuring that out, they realize that, you know what, I'm okay paying higher prices as long as I can be really close to work. Some people, alternatively, they want to be able to go home from work and have a really big lot, a really big home, and they don't care if they have a longer commute. Tip number 3, the closer you are to a metro station, the more expensive the real estate. Again, this is a general rule. There are exceptions to every rule, right? Usually when you get down to within about a half mile, sometimes 3/4 of a mile from a metro station in Northern Virginia, you'll notice a significant shift in prices of properties. In general, when you can walk to the metro, you're paying a premium for real estate within walking distance of a metro station in Northern Virginia. Tip number 4, the farther away you are from DC, the lower the prices. Again, this rule is a general rule and there are exceptions to every rule. But as you go farther away from DC, typically you'll see the prices start to come down, and you'll see that you're able to afford a bigger home and a bigger lot size for the same amount of money as you would have spent closer to DC. So when you're looking at this map right here, when you see this big ring that goes around the DC area, and it's a big highway, it's 495 and it's called the Beltway. So on average, when you get inside the Beltway, price of real estate goes up. As you go farther out from the Beltway and to farther outlying Northern Virginia communities, price of real estate goes down. Now, keep in mind, there are plenty of communities out there that are farther from DC, but are still very hot communities. And you will see expensive properties in those communities. So a lot of this just depends on the area. Tip number 5, traffic is really bad in Northern Virginia. So just remember that when you're looking on a map, it's never just an easy thing to estimate what your commute time is going to be based on the number of miles from your job to your home. You can spend a lot of time in the car, and it's important to drive different routes during rush hour traffic just to understand how long it's going to take. Tip number 6, it's good to understand the typical lot size in Northern Virginia. So that can range anywhere from, let's just use Arlington as an example. Arlington, it's very common to find 0.12, 0.15 acre lots. If you get outside of Arlington, a lot of other places that are inside the Beltway, that are inside that 495 freeway that we talked about, typical lot size is usually about a quarter acre. So somewhere around like 0.23 to 0.27 acres is very, very common inside the Beltway. And then even just outside the Beltway, that's a very common lot size. You can find some 0.5 acre lots inside the Beltway. You can find some 0.5 acre lots as you get just a little bit outside the Beltway. Totally depends. Generally, as you get farther west or south, you will find even bigger lot sizes. That's when you can get into the 3/4 acre lots, 1 acre lots, 1 plus, 2 acre, 3+ acre lots. It just depends on the area. Tip number 7, if you're relocating to Northern Virginia, it might not be a bad idea just to rent for a while, just to get to know the market, to understand, commute times, to understand where you'll be driving to on a regular basis, as you're going about your life, to understand the area, to learn about different communities that you might like or dislike. In terms of finding good rental options, anything you find in the multiple listing service, so the MLS, will be 6+ months. For shorter term leases, it's often very good to look into sites like Airbnb, VRBO. Another short-term rental option that's really good is Northern Virginia does have a decent number of short-term rental, like furnished apartment buildings. So it's just good to know all the options there, because the one thing you don't want to do probably is sign a longer term lease if you know you're only going to be renting here for a few months. Tip number 8, tax assessments are not useful indicators of market value. So in some areas of the country, a property's tax assessed value will be very close on average to what actual real estate values are in that area. There are areas in Virginia that are like that. Northern Virginia is not one of them. So typically, even before the pandemic and the real estate boom that happened during the pandemic, a tax assessment in Northern Virginia on let's just say, for example, a single family detached home would oftentimes be, tens of thousands, $100,000, even $200,000 less than what the sales price of the property would be if it's sold, especially on upgraded properties, on properties that have been renovated. The one caveat there is the 2022 tax assessments that were formulated by tax assessors early in 2022 did get a little bit overly aggressive. So there has been some fluctuation there in terms of what I've noticed in terms of sales prices versus tax assessments and the ratios there. Tip number 9, it's good to get to know the different architectural styles of homes in Northern Virginia. So what are those main types of style? Ramblers, they're called ranchers in other areas of the country, one-level homes with basements. Other types of ramblers don't have basements. Maybe they have a crawl space foundation or a concrete slab foundation. Cape Cod homes, colonial homes, split levels, split foyers. These are all very, very common architectural styles in Northern Virginia. Keep in mind, Northern Virginia has a lot of older homes. So there are tons of homes that were built anywhere from the early 1900s on up. So sometimes I get comments from people who relocate here, clients that I have who relocate here, that talk about, gosh, all these homes, there's so many older looking homes. Just because the area that they're from, wherever they're coming from, there were a lot of newer homes. A lot of older looking homes have been remodeled really well over the years. They've been maintained really well over the years. And you walk inside and you're like, wow, this feels like this home was built in 2020. And a lot of people who think that newer construction is always the way to go, well, to be honest, I've been in hundreds of home inspections over the years, and I hear over and over again from inspectors how much they love the construction of like 1940s, 50s, 60s. They just overbuilt homes back then. They didn't really know any other way to do it. And so as a result, you have a lot of excess masonry, a lot of excess steel, a lot of excess wood. So they're not going anywhere. I mean, they're built like tanks. So now you know the top 9 tips on finding housing in Northern Virginia. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment, and let me know if you're planning on buying your first home. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I do new videos every week, and you don't want to miss anything.